Hey everyone, Garrett and Jocelyn here from the Angry Chicken with a special BlizzcOnline interview. We're sitting here with Liv Breeden and Joe Killion to talk about so many things in Hearthstone. There's not just one thing we're going to talk about today. We've got Year of the Griffin, we've got a brand new expansion, we have a new game mode, and plenty of odds and ends in between. But Liv, we've had you on the Angry Chicken before, but for anyone who may be unfamiliar, what is it you do on Team 5?
I'm a senior game designer on the Hearthstone team. I work on the initial design team, so I work with Joe, and we come up with the mechanics for the set, the theme, the voice lines, the art descriptions, all that sort of stuff before handing it off to final design, where they change all the numbers and break our cool designs.
Break or balance?
Yeah, it's probably better, but
depends on how you look at it. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then Joe Killion, what about you?
I'm also a designer on the team. I was the set lead for Forged in the Barrens, and recently I've been working on the new Mercenaries mode.
Awesome.
Ooh.
That's very exciting because we have some questions about
questions.
Mercenaries. and as always, we always kick these off with, just hit us with the no, we can't answer that. That's fine. We understand. So, anyways, I think we're going to kind of just start talking about the Year of the Griffin and the roadmap that was shown here. Joss, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I mean, one of my favorite things you guys have been doing for the past couple of years is the roadmap and really kind of giving us an idea of things that are coming down the pipeline. And I know obviously what comes with that is, the potential of making promises and, staying as vague as possible. But we did notice in the Year of the Phoenix roadmap from last year that there was a new game mode that was expected in phase 3. So is that game mode Mercenaries that's now being shown in phase 1 of the Year of the Griffin roadmap? Like that's our game mode. That's what we have to look forward to.
Sorry, I didn't know if Joe was going to answer that one. So yeah, that's the same one. I know we had duels as like this other game mode that was supposed to be smaller in scale, and Mercenaries was intended to be this larger scale. And for our roadmaps, we're just trying to like give you a rough estimate, but I mean, we're gonna put it out when it's right. It's if we delay the game mode just a little bit, and it's a lot better. I think it's just healthier all around.
Absolutely.
That's great. I'm always down for when it's ready, as the mantra. Now also, like, it appears, looking at the horde themed expansion that we're about to get, and then also the teases of the other expansions, number 2 looking suspiciously alliance heavy. It appears that we're getting somewhat like a year-long story again, kind of like what we saw in Year of the Dragon. Now, after it's been a while now since Hearthstone dropped like the moniker Heroes of Warcraft name, but kind of curious, like, can you speak to like deciding on focusing so heavily on like a horde and alliance and very traditional Warcraft theme? Should we start calling this like Heroes of Hearthstone? Because we're getting a lot, like we've gotten unique heroes in the past, but it seems like we're getting a lot more now.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started talking about what we wanted to do this year, we kicked around the idea of doing another year-long narrative, and we were coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas of what we could do. And something that we all kind of really gravitated towards was this idea of that classic Warcraft experience. Around this time, classic WoW had just come out, and a lot of us were playing that. And, there's a lot of nostalgia for that time. And I think it's also a really cool, like, story framing. And we want to tell that story of, going from zero newbie who knows nothing about the world and leveling up and becoming this great hero. And as we were looking for a way to kick it off, I mean, we thought about different starting zones that were pretty iconic, and Barrens was just, one of the most iconic that we all thought was really awesome. And because it's in Kalimdor right next to Orgrimmar, it's pretty horde themed, so we wanted to lean into that. But, Alliance players aren't forgotten. The Barrens has tons of kind of Alliance outposts like Northwatch Hold and the Baal Modan ruins. And, we're also introducing these 10 new mercenary characters to Hearthstone that we're super excited about. And they'll be kind of the lens into this year-long narrative for us. And we'll follow them as they progress through, this kind of Warcraft progression track. And it's really cool because we got to have one for each of the heroes in Hearthstone. So we got to actually have 5 Horde characters and 5 Alliance characters. So even though this is more Horde themed, Alliance players will still have a lot of kind of things to connect to in the set.
It's really
okay.
cool.
You don't have to bring up the Alliance here. We are Horde players.
Well, excuse me. I'm Alliance now, Joce. I don't know if you got the memo.
Wait, what?
Oh, no.
What? Oh, now we're fighting.
It's also super cool because these are the 10 mercenaries that we are introducing, these 10 legendary characters. There's one, they're like iconic characters that you've probably played with or played as. So there's the Orc Warrior or the Forsaken Warlock or the Human Paladin. And these are characters that are just so iconic for like Warcraft, where if you're like, yeah, if I picture an Orc Warrior in my head, I got that, right? And then it's going to be their journey of being level 16 and in the Barrens and having to deal with Mankrick's wife and finding them. And then like, as they grow up and then go to like level 60, what does that even mean within this year-long narrative? And it's really cool too, because we call them mercenaries because these are characters that will be seen in standard Hearthstone. They'll be seen in the Mercenaries mode. We're doing a book of Mercenaries, which is the single player content. So we're like the card set team is really good at painting with really broad strokes, like theme, vibe, feels, those sorts of ththings. So like when you say Barrens or Alliance, even like you kind of get what those sets are, but you don't really know like what are the individual stories. And the book of Mercenaries is really exciting because we'll be able to dive into that and see what the Orc Warrior is doing in the Barrens and what her story is going throughout that. And then like how that leads into the second set and what's going on between the second set and the third set. So it's really cool to dive in and see all the threads within this larger narrative.
It does seem, just from what we've been told through BlizzcOnline so far this weekend, it does really seem like it's more of like a pulling together all of the pieces, but also like kind of pulling together all the parts of Hearthstone, like not only just the stories of all of the mercenaries, but they seem to kind of pop up all over the place, in conversations about Battlegrounds with the new game mode and conversations about standard. And it's probably the first time that we've kind of seen this sort of style of storytelling. Because even when we did the whole Year of the Dragon year-long story, that was kind of tied together with some single player stuff. But this feels like no matter what kind of Hearthstone you're playing, you're going to be involved in this story.
Yeah, it's super exciting. You see it in this, you'll see it in Battlegrounds, you'll see it in Mercenaries. And it's really exciting to like see these characters pop up everywhere and see them for the entire year and see how they grow.
Yeah, and we definitely learned a lot, like from, telling that story in the Year of the Dragon and all the different places that we could put story. We did like the little tavern brawls that would kind of lead into the next one, and we had like little cinematics in between and stuff. But yeah, we have so much stuff in Hearthstone now that it just opens up this opportunity for us to really sprinkle these little bits in everywhere. So yeah, like Liv said, it's not just this broad stroke of Horde Barrens themed. It's, you're going into Battlegrounds and playing with Quill Boars, and you're experiencing these mercenaries in single player and mercenaries and everything. So yeah, it's definitely super exciting.
And even within the card set, right? Like, so we've got Brukan, the legendary shaman minion with nature spell damage +3, but every class also has rank up spells, which it's kind of like the journey of the players of I have Fire Blast rank 1 and then I get Fire Blast rank 2, and it's just better because I'm better at this. So the rank up spells are also in that story where it's when you reach 5 mana, they level up a little bit. And then when you reach 10 mana, they level up again. And so the cards are relevant throughout the game. But the card art, this is where I'm getting, it was a tangent. But the card art for those rank up spells is also the legendary mercenaries with like performing their action. So that's actually Brukan doing the chain lightning. And it's really cool to also see like what their signature spells are.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up Brukan, and I'm glad that you brought up nature spell damage, because that's kind of a big thing in the Forged in the Barrens expansion and in the new Year of the Griffin, is the fact that our spells, new and old, are getting types. Like we would have minion types, now we have spell types, which is just kind of, for me at least, came way out of left field. I was like, wait, what? Fire spells, frost spells, nature damage? What is happening? So is this the sort of thing that's going to be, like, are we going to see changes to some older minions where they'll get specific types of spell damage? Like, what does that mean for spell damage as we know it? Will there still be generic spell damage? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, we don't have any plans to go back and change old minions to now have these, nature spell damage or fire spell damage. But, it's something that we want to explore going forward, like Brucon with his nature spell damage +3. It's such a awesome thing for Shaman, because Shaman has access to like all these different nature spells that are really high in damage. So it just helps that a lot. But I definitely think like we'll still see the generic spell damage. I mean, neutral, it's a good place for it. And there's, while like Shaman only has access to a few kind of types of spells, Mage is going to have access to like a lot of different spells because they're masters of the arcane arts. I have like arcane and fire and frost. And I think that's a place where, the generic spell damage definitely makes a lot more sense.
And even within like nature, right? Nature and shaman is really different, where it's like lightning and damage and burn and all those sorts of things. But you look at nature and druid and it's all about buffs and summoning, and it feels really different from the two classes. So like, spell damage, nature spell damage doesn't really make sense in druid, whereas like something buff related does make a lot of sense. So we can tap into those different hooks for the different spell types in different ways, even within the same school.
Very cool. And now we also have a, while we're talking about how cards are changing, we have a new keyword, which is always exciting, frenzy. It seems to draw somewhat from Spellburst and the fact that it's a one-time use effect. So I'm kind of curious, like, does that speak to the success of Spellburst? And I'm also curious if the frenzy we got to see this weekend at BlizzCon and we're going to see when Barrens hits, is that pretty one-to-one with the initial pitch for it, or did it go through kind of, ebbs and flows of the development cycle?
Yeah, I mean, we're always iterating as we're designing these things. And early on in the process, we're just throwing mechanics at the wall and seeing like, what's this crazy thing? What fits in the set? What makes sense? And the idea of Frenzy was definitely something that we landed on pretty early on. It wasn't exactly, a one-time trigger when it takes damage and things like that. But after a while, we, thought this was like a pretty good representation of like the Horde. They're these big, cool characters who take damage and they're strong enough to fight back and stuff. So you have characters like Blade Master Samuro, who has rush and frenzy. Dealers means attack damage to everything. So he just gets in there and does a bunch of that damage. But yeah, the one-time trigger is definitely something that we learned a lot from Spellburst. It lets us put more power behind these things because there's something that's only going to happen once. It's not, a trigger where you're playing spells and then you're just damaging over and over again. You're actually able to do a big effect like Samuro's because it can only happen once.
And I think this is something that's like you said, the success of Skullomance. We did it in Skullomance, and we're really happy with the designs that we're able to make. We can make things like Kel'Thuzad, where it's like, yeah, you just like steal a bunch of things from your opponent, but like Joe said, you just can't make those if it can happen over and over again. So I think if we look at some older mechanics that are maybe fan favorites, but they didn't quite get there. So like things like Inspire, I think if we were to redo Inspire in like a future set or something like that, and it was a one-time trigger, we could kind of make Inspire a more exciting keyword that we don't have to worry about how snowbally it is, because doing it multiple, like, yes, you can only do it once per turn, but even if it sticks, then you do it again, then you do it again, then you do it again. So those are always things that we have to think about. But with one-time triggers, it's kind of like a safety guard where we can give you exciting stuff, but not have to
overdo
nerf
it
later. Yes.
That makes sense.
That's awesome. And then in terms of, we talked a little bit about Shaman already, but they come to mind because of how they are being pretty like notably revamped with the core set. Even their hero powers being messed with and getting a new totem. And I believe in the panel itself, it was said that Shaman was kind of getting the most changes, but will we be seeing any other class revamps in that vein? We saw a priest revamp, like, what was it, a year ago, sort of kind of like a lighter one. Or is this like, the year over year changing core set enough to address any concerns about class fantasy or class viability?
I think a lot of classes are getting shaken up at least a little bit. As far as like big sweeping changes like Shaman, I think Priest does still come to mind. I think like turn 2, you don't have a minion to play and you're at full health. What do? I'm going to heal my opponent and threaten them or something like that, you know? And that's not like necessarily the most exciting thing. So I think one thing that we did try playing around with is like, what if it just gave you a permanent 1 health if you like overhealed or something like that? But it was super weird seeing like 31 health on a hero. And then it's like, well, how much health do I actually have? I don't really remember what my maximum is. So if I'm trying to heal, how do I get the most benefit out of it? And so it just was such an unusual thing to see, is like 31, 32 health. So we went back on that, but we are looking at like priests and other ways to make like priest hero power, I don't know, a little more engaging on turn 2.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about mercenaries. Joce, I know we've got a couple questions. I'll let you start off.
Yeah, I think so. Mercenaries it seems like just such kind of a departure from what we're used to seeing in Hearthstone. Like it seems like this super big, crazy thing. And one of the things that Ben mentioned, I believe it was during the deep dive, is he said that you guys are thinking of Hearthstone less as a game and more of a platform for card games, which at least to us outside the team is quite a new concept, I guess. So we got a whole bunch of game modes in Year of the Phoenix. Seems like not so many planned for Year of the Griffin. Can you speak to maybe what this is going to look like? Is it going to get more support? Just the idea of Hearthstone as a platform for card games. Like, what can we kind of expect from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like super exciting for Hearthstone. We did Battlegrounds recently, and while it has these elements of Hearthstone, it's wildly different than the core game. And I think that's pretty awesome because there's tons of developers on the team and tons of people who play the game. So everybody has an option to play the game how they want. And yeah, Mercenaries, it's going to be pretty different, but it's still a part of Hearthstone, so we still want to have those elements that you're familiar with, and like cards and things like that. But so
it does have cards then.
Yes,
because we didn't really get to see any gameplay, and I know you probably can't talk about it too much, but can you give us any kind of hints as to just a little bit more explanation, maybe, of what that gameplay might look like?
I mean, we're still, super early on in development and iterating on things. So we don't have a ton to share about like the actual gameplay, but you'll be collecting these mercenary cards and then leveling them up and creating a team out of them, and then going and doing these kind of like roguelike PvE experiences. And we'll also have some PvE or PvP elements as well. But the core focus is around like building this team of cool heroes and having their abilities and powers kind of synergize together and have a really like powerful, fun play experience.
Gotcha. There's been a little talk about how, or just a little bit of talk about mercenaries working into Hearthstone progression and the rewards track. Can you speak to if there will be mercenary specific quests, and also on the flip side of that, will playing mercenaries count towards existing quests? Are we going to see like a mix of both, like we've seen with other modes in Hearthstone?
Yeah, I mean, I think the new progression track is something that's like super awesome in the game. You can play pretty much any game mode and get rewards out of it and play the way that you want to play. So we definitely want to have mercenaries tie into that, so you can play mercenaries. And we're still working on it, so we're not sure if it's going to be like daily quests or whatever, but we definitely want to have all that tie into it.
Yeah, I mean, we put a lot of work into the achievement system and the reward system. I think if we're looking at Hearthstone as this platform, I mean, it makes sense that no matter how you play Hearthstone, you'll get rewarded for it. And you don't feel like you've got to like, I've got to go do my Battlegrounds grind for today. If you're not a fan of Battlegrounds, you just don't need to play it. And I think that's okay. But if you love Battlegrounds, then you just play Battlegrounds, right?
Yeah. I get excited when I get like the Battle Cry quest, because it's like, well, I can play whatever I want and I'll get this in eventually.
Yeah.
Joce, I'm heading over to you again.
Oh, okay. So yeah, basically, again, more mercenaries questions, which may or may not be answerable. But you talked about leveling up of the characters, which was mentioned quite a few times in the presentations as well. So that seems to be the, I guess, progression system within Mercenaries is focused on your heroes that you're going to be playing with or using to build your team. I almost said deck, and I'm like, I don't even know if there's a deck at this point. So using to build your team. So is that the main form of progression within the mode, or is there going to be anything else that's like leaderboard type stuff or comparisons to other players? Because there was also mention of kind of PvP type things. So when we're looking at progression within Mercenaries, like what are we really talking about?
Yeah, I think, the main thing that you're going to be doing is going through PvE stuff and leveling up these characters and making their powers stronger and all their abilities and stuff. But, like I mentioned, there's going to be some PvP. So we'll probably have some form of leaderboard, or like, we have Battlegrounds, MMR and stuff like that. So, there'll definitely be ways for you to jump in and play PvE or PvP, kind of which one you prefer.
I think part of it is also, we're not entirely just being coy about it. Some of it, we're just trying to figure out what feels right for the mode. I think one thing we learned from Battlegrounds is everything is super self-contained in Battlegrounds, and there's not like a lot of progression within the game itself. So how do we create those progression systems in this new game mode that are not necessarily like, it's not like so self-contained that like the rewards track takes care of everything. Like it should feel like its own game mode, and that it has its own progression system.
Gotcha. Like it really has its own identity as because a lot of times, like, we make a podcast, we make a lot of content about this game, and when we talk about Battlegrounds, it is its own segment because it is its own game with its own meta and its own strategies, compared to standard or arena or any other constructed or deck building Hearthstone game.
Yeah, it's its own game mode, and I think if I look at like standard Hearthstone, the progression is like filling out your collection or climbing the ladder or doing all the achievements. And Battlegrounds, I think, is like one of the challenges that we run into is that sort of thing, where it's like, what can we do for players that like makes them feel progression, what that makes them feel stuff they want to unlock. I think achievements helps a little bit with that, where you're like, oh, I'm going to get the achievement, I'm going to win on every character. But like, because it is so self-contained, and it's not like you're changing which minions you bring into battle or like your opponent or what Bob offers you, right? Because I would just kind of like feel really weird in the mode. But like also cosmetics are like, is that what people want? I'm not sure if people want cosmetics within Battlegrounds. So those are a bunch of questions that we find really challenging and kind of struggle with on some level. So we're just trying to address those ahead of time for Mercenaries so that it feels organic and appropriate for the mode.
Well, if I can get cosmetics that are like alternate hero ed or something on the lines of Baby King Crush, I'm into it.
Yeah, you want Baby King Crush, yeah.
that
oh my God,
awesome.
all the little baby heroes were so cute. I was like, I don't want to level them up. I just want to be the baby rag forever.
Yeah, it's been super fun, finding these characters and creating the art for them to level up and see, we get to tell stories of like Sylvanas progressing from human to undead, or King Crush from Baby King Crush to Big King Crush. It's super fun.
Prince Crush.
Prince
yeah.
King, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I guess the only other question I have before we end here, is, wrapping up on the Mercenaries thing, because there's a lot of talk this weekend about like the dichotomy between the PvE side of it and the PvP side of it, and I came out of it feeling like I had a pretty good understanding of like, okay, PvE side of it, that's where I'm going to like level up and kind of progress and get new things and, make my Baby King Crush something worthy of chasing down a Jeep. But on the PvP side of things is what draws me there? Like why do I want to go and fight Jocelyn in Mercenaries?
I mean, superiority. I don't really. I think
now we have an Alliance Horde rivalry, apparently.
Right.
So that's another reason.
And then if you put some orc in your Mercenaries band, I don't know if that's fair. But yeah, there's I think it's just certain different player archetypes. Some people just want to play PvE. I think we even see that in standard Hearthstone, where it's like, yeah, I love the single player content, and I don't care about ladder at all. So just give me more of that. Give me dungeon runs. Give me Book of Mercenaries. Give me stories to explore, and that's where, like, even some of my friends and family, that's like where they spend their time. They don't even bother with standard Hearthstone. They just do single player content. And I think there's, on the flip side of that, if you have like a game mode that's just single, or that's like largely single player, there's still people who want to like go do that other stuff against other players. I think duels is another example of that, where it's like people are like, I really like dungeon runs, but I want to play this against other people. And so we're giving people those sorts of opportunities.
Awesome. Well, Liv and Joe, thank you so much for taking time today to sit down and talk with us. And, congratulations on another, massive new standard year announcement and everything that has come with it. We really look forward to seeing all of these things hit the game. And I mean, heck, while we were watching all the announcements, a patch had already hit. So enjoy the rest of your
we've got a lot
weekend.
in store. I'm really excited for this upcoming year. It's super exciting. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. Can't wait to, get into card reveals and everything. It's going to be super exciting.
Looking forward to it.
You can subscribe to The Angry Chicken on all your favorite podcast apps like Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss another Angry Chicken video.